بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue today with the 8th hadith in the series of 40 hadiths that we've been working on. This hadith is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أفضل الأعمال أو العمل الصلاة لوقتها وبر الوالدين. And this hadith is in Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that the best of deeds, or the best deed is, and he mentions two, the first being the salah prayed in its time, at its time, and the second, respect, kindness to parents. And that word bir, we'll get into it inshallah. So two things. The first that the Prophet ﷺ begins with, if we'll notice, he begins with a deed that is directly related to Allah Azza wa Jal. So when he's talking about the best of deeds or the best deed, he begins by prioritizing the deed that first has to do with Allah Subhanahu, and that is the great act of ibadah, the salah. The salah, there is so much that has been said about the salah throughout the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We find that Allah Jalla wa Ala in the Quran and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam command us with regards to the salah, to perform the salah, to make sure that all of the different acts of the salah, that they are performed with perfection, that there's khushu', that there's that quality of being present in the salah, of having concentration and focus and being attentive and aware in the salah, to not be distracted from the salah, from Allah Azza wa Jal, by anything else. There's also the teaching of making sure that the salah is prayed in its time, in the masjid, with congregation. The salah is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The salah, as the Prophet ﷺ has also told us with regards to its blessings and its virtues and merits, that the salah is the main demarcation between a Muslim and his faith and the person who leaves his faith and is considered to be a kafir. The salah and how it is the key to Jannah. The salah and how it is going to be the first thing that Allah questions us about in the hereafter. The salah and how it is going to be the last true characteristic of the believers, that when it leaves this dunya, then know that the dunya itself is cursed and that the end of time is just around the corner for Allah's destruction to set in. The salah. But what are we talking about? Or what is the Prophet ﷺ talking about when he says as-salatu li-waqtiha? The prayer li-waqtiha. Waqt, everyone understands that it's talking about time. But what is understood here? Well, the first thing for us to understand is that the salah to be prayed within its prescribed time period. And what we do know from the salah is what we have in the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with Jibreel ﷺ, when he came to teach the Prophet ﷺ not only how to pray from beginning to end, but also the time to make the prayer, meaning the time limits of the beginning time and the last or the end time which a person can make the prayer. So this is the first thing it's referring to, is the time that it's prayed within its prescribed time. That you have that range of from beginning to end, and so long as it's within that time, it has been prayed within its time. And so this is to tell us that the salah itself, that it should not be left in the way that perhaps some do, and they do not pray it in its time and think that, well, I'll just make it up and pray them at the end of the day. And they combine between 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 of the prayers, thinking I'm still praying the prayer. The second understanding for this is that the Prophet ﷺ is telling us about the best time for the prayer to be performed, and that is at its beginning time, when the time for the prayer first comes in. And this is, of course, for the majority of the salah, except for Salat al-Isha, which we know from the blessed Sunnah of the Messenger ﷺ that he would actually delay Salat al-Isha until quite late at night. But the rest of them, that he would basically pray. And there was differences with regards to the seasons and stuff of how things were done, but the beginning time. And one of the things that the scholars say with regards to this is because it helps the believers to show the priority that the salah should make in their lives, that nothing else is going to come before it. That they're saying, in essence, Allah, I know that the prayer time has come in, that this is that most noble act of worship that you have commanded us to, and nothing else is going to prevent me, except, of course, if there's something of a very serious, legitimate, good reason. But secondly, so that this way, the salah is performed, and it's not in any way forgotten about because of the busyness, such that it's then maybe even completely missed, or that just in the nick of time that the servant, the slave of Allah, that believing man or woman, that they're able to perform it just at the nick of time before its time leaves, because they did not pray it at the beginning, not in the sense of getting it out of its way or getting it out of the way, but really in the essence of putting things in their proper time slots and then allowing whatever else of life and business to proceed and to continue. So the salah in its prescribed time being prayed at its beginning time. The second thing that we find the Prophet ﷺ teaching us is birrul walidain. Now this second teaching is referring to not Allahu Jalla wa Ala, but a relationship that with regards to the created is supposed to be one of the most important, and that is the relationship with parents. This word birr in the Arabic is so comprehensive and so inclusive that it includes within its meaning anything and everything of goodness and benefit towards the parents. So we're talking everything of respect, of obedience, and of course obedience that does not in any way contradict Allah Azza wa Jal in His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So obedience and everything that is correct within Islam, but never obedience that is in disobedience to Allah and the Messenger. Kindness, looking out for their well-being, making dua for them, asking Allah for their guidance, for their protection, for blessings, for mercy, for forgiveness. Anything and everything that is going to benefit them and be good for them in this dunya, but even after their death, that son, that daughter, that they keep those parents in mind, that even in death, that they remember them in their du'as, asking Allah Azza wa Jal to have mercy for them, to forgive them, to erase their sins, to accept their deeds, to increase for them their good deeds, to bless them to be of those that are saved and rescued on Judgment Day, and so on and so forth. Birr al-walidain, a relationship that in reality is supposed to be greater than the relationship of a person to their husband or wife, greater than the relationship of a person to their children, greater than the relationship of a person to their siblings, greater than the relationship of a person with anybody else. And in the same way that if we could draw an analogy, that the first relationship that's mentioned of the salah is dealing with the Creator, who is the source of all that exists, that the second is that of the parents, who in reality that Allah has made them a reason for our coming into being in this world, that we are supposed to give everybody who has their rights, their due rights, and the parents are the second category that we need to keep in mind. And definitely the person who keeps Allah Azza wa Jal in mind, and they keep their prayers and Allah Azza wa Jal's teachings alive in their hearts and in their minds and in the way that they live their lives, inshallah they are far better able to keep the love and respect of their parents also alive within their hearts and in their minds and in their lives. And so we ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to truly bless us with the taqwa that we need, so that we can remember Allah Jalla wa Ala in the best of ways and worship and serve Him in the best of ways, and that He also grant us the success and blessings that we need to truly be the best of children to our parents, regardless of what they may have been or how they may have been in their lives, that we do our part keeping Allah Azza wa Jal in mind, and that He reunite us all together in the blessed place of paradise that He has made for His servants. Allahumma ameen. Wa salli Allahumma ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.